All right. Are you ready to live your life and your business and as a parent on your own terms? Well, then you are in for a treat today. I'm super excited to have my good friend, Heather Chauvin, with me. She is a TEDx speaker, the author of Dying to Be a Good Mother, and the amazing podcast host of Emotionally Uncomfortable, which I was just a guest on.
Yay!
Welcome, Heather.
I'm
Yay.
excited. I'm looking at myself in the video and I'm like,
Yeah, I
all
know.
these boxes everywhere. This is life on my own terms.
Life on your own terms. I love it. And I did put a disclaimer that I was like, there will most likely be explicit, not lyrics, but language. And I was like, no,
Lyrics.
there will be. We'll just be upfront about it. There will definitely
100%.
be some language. So, if there's children around or whatever.
I will be mindful. I'll be
Oh,
mindful.
that's okay. I mean, kids should be at school, right? Anyway. Okay, so I wanted to start by sharing something. I was poking around in your website today and something really stood out for me. And the quote it says, as the chemo dripped into my body, I decided that I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to feel alive.
Yeah.
And that stood out to me. I mean, you and I have a shared, kind of near death experience. And that language resonates with me so deeply because I knew I wanted to thrive and not just survive. And I created a list of things I wanted to do because I was alive, not
Mm.
before I die. And I just feel like it always seems to take these near-death experiences for us to experience this desire to live fully and deeply and be truly alive. And you obviously had that experience. So can you just share a little bit about your story?
Yeah. So there's so much that I want to say, but this right now is actually it's interesting because this morning I had a moment and maybe I'll talk about the moment. I feel like so it was in 2021 I wrote my book Dying to Be a Good Mother, and it was like 8-9 years ago now, like so far in my past, that I was diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer. And that was really a pivotal moment when about 6 months before I decided to like leave the corporate job, like sign off on it post maternity leave and jump full tilt into business. And so you have all of that coming up, right? Like, holy crap, I am my own boss now. I have this infant. I have 3 kids. So my youngest was like a year old when I decided to jump ship. And I just remember like completely feeling dead inside, like neglecting myself. But the weird thing is, and I talk about this a lot, I didn't want to feel dead. Like, that was not my intention to feel dead inside. I actually felt awful, and I'm always been like a very sensitive person, like emotionally and physically, and my body just reacts to energy and stuff. And as a child, I was always very sensitive to this energy. And then I became a mother and I was looking around, I'm like, does everyone else feel like shit? Like, are you okay feeling like this? And the feedback I was getting was like, suck it up, buttercup. This is adulthood. This
Mm,
is life. And so, the rebel inside of me was kind of like, well, screw that. I'm going to like push back on that. But then there was this fear part of me that if I didn't conform to society's standards, that like I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I need to feel like shit, and I just need to give, then I have failed on a primal level as my job as the nurturer. So I was like playing with both of those. And then when cancer happened, I was like, I guess my theory was correct that I should feel good. And I have now checked the box of being done with societal's expectations of who I need to be. And after that, I was like, well, if I'm literally at my bottom, like I see what has happened from me neglecting my mind, my body. Actually, that's a lie. I was fueling my mind because I was very invested in personal development and business at that time, but I was neglecting my body and I was neglecting my soul on some level. And I was like, screw this. I am now going to run towards how I want to feel. And it has completely changed my life. And I'm still on this journey. And I want to tell you another story, but we'll go there.
I love, okay, well, we'll dive in. I mean, this can go anywhere, but I love that run towards it, right? Like we often run away from the things that scare us or the things that are outside of the conventional way of doing things because we're judged or we fear the judgment or, put any label on it that you want. And I
Yeah.
think that's so many people just live their life not truly being alive and not running towards the life they want. And I love that you fully embrace that and acknowledge that it is still a work in progress.
Yeah. Well, I don't actually know that many people in my life who I would say embody aliveness. Like if I look around my everyday life of like people I come into contact with, I could probably pinpoint one or two. And
Mm,
these are people that like they don't have to be personal development gurus because some of those people aren't even practicing what they preach. Like
right.
they're actually living their life from a place of fear or trying to please somebody else or something, and it's masked in the wellness culture, right? It's another diet culture thing, and that's another soapbox that I will get on. But I mean, like, you see those people who genuinely are present when you talk to them. And aliveness to me is not about like living my quote unquote best life and traveling the world all the time or like not having to work. That's not it at all. It's actually feeling both sides of the coin. That today I didn't really have a lot on my to do list. And I'm like, I have the freedom to choose because I've created this life and I've created this space for myself. But what does aliveness feel like for me? And that was, having the tendency to be like, I can hide, like that resistance can pull me back in. Or because I have this space now, I can choose to step up and into my next vision of who I want to be. So I can invest this time that I have into brainstorming another idea or that creative project or whatever it is. Like, how can I? And that conscious like effort to constantly like choose that bigger vision, that even if it's 1 degree, that takes effort, that takes energy. It's not just about crossing your fingers and being like, I've arrived, my laptop is on, on a beach somewhere. It's like, how do you feel inside? And that to me is what aliveness represents. And I don't see many people committing to even being on that messy journey.
Yeah. And it is a messy journey. And
Yeah.
you will, with all the good intentions in the world, you're still going to have days that are going to be garbage or that you'll feel crappy or you'll get into that downward spiral.
And that's aliveness. Like it's being human. Yeah.
I also think that if everything was just like do 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 like along the one line, there'd be no emotion on either direction. Like you need the downs to have the ups. You need all of the experiences of life to know, oh, this is what I'm striving for, but you have to kind of hit these other areas and levels
Yeah.
to know, to have a frame of reference.
100%. Okay, so I want to tell you a story.
Yes,
This is
please.
like so on my heart.
Okay,
And
tell.
so I feel at this moment in my life, like today, I feel really good, like really good in most areas of my life. And I see life as like this little triangle. There's like survival mode on the bottom, momentum, thrival, and then creative abundance.
Ooh.
And I just made up this little
I,
triangle. Not now, but I made it up
okay, like
previously.
right now you may.
I did not make it up right now. But I actually talk about it in my TED talk. And when you think about the buckets of your life, most people are living in a state of survival mode,
Mhm.
right? And so when you're living in a state of survival mode in all these areas of your life, when a crisis happens, 2020, a health crisis, something happens, everything that was in survival now goes into a crisis state. So your parenting, your marriage, your money, your time, your energy, your health. And then people are like, what happened? How did I get here? Oh, let's blame it on the weather. Let's blame it on the pandemic. Let's blame it on everything else, right? Yes, oppression, systems, these are real things, right? It's not just about like positive thinking. There's real things that are getting you there. But my point is, when life is like not throwing you punching you in the face, that's when you have to choose to feel as good as you possibly can. So after cancer, I mean, pre-cancer, I was always doing that work. That was like the introduction. Post-cancer, I started talking about this concept that I created, energetic time management, which is reverse engineering how you want to feel in your life. So I practice, like, how good can I get? How good can I get? So now today I'm in this moment where I'm like, wow, I've accomplished a lot that I want to accomplish. What's the next level? And I'm realizing in this state of what I would say thrival in most areas of my life, like tomorrow, literally the wave could change and something could drop down to a survival state. So just know everything is temporary, right? But it's a muscle. It's reps. You have to do the workout every day, just tapping in a little bit. I realize that I've never been here. I've also don't come from a lineage of women or people in general that have been here. And so I'm creating a new identity for myself. This is a mind game because when you are not in a crisis state or living in a state of fear of having to do some work, what is going to motivate you? Right? When you're like, I'm good, I have all the time, the energy, the finances that I need. So now I need to like dig a little bit deeper to get my ass out the door. Now I need to dig a little bit deeper to do that big, scary thing. And I was having a conversation with a woman today. And actually, I went on a run with her this morning because she was holding me accountable. And I might get emotional because it was like the anniversary of somebody's passing that like was really, really close to her. It was actually her child. And I sat there and I was like, I have so much joy in my heart right now. And we can feel joy and grief at the same time. But I realized that my job in that moment was to hold my joy. Like the best thing I could do for this woman is to be me fully self-expressed, because multiple times she said to me, you have given me so much life in the last few years just watching you and just observing you and like just like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And so I realize how many times we shrink ourselves or we dim ourselves to meet other people where they're at. When in reality, you becoming you is literally saving somebody's life. It's going to trigger other people as well, but we have no idea the impact that we're making by being in our joy. And then after that, I had this moment where I'm like, do you know how counterintuitive and how much of a challenge and work it is to stay in your joy and constantly choose, how can I, when there's a war going on, when your children are suffering, when your best friend just lost the love of their life, when, you know, your parents are sick, when, and like choosing that every single day, I'm like, this is my work and this is not fun all the time.
God, it's so true. It's, we tend to, when somebody's down, we meet their energy, right? Or if our life is going great and they're like, I lost my job and like all those things. And then you feel like energetically, like you can't feel
The
joy
guilt takes
or
over.
guilt, like, oh, my life is great right now, right? Because
Yeah.
maybe you've averted a few crises and you were in survival mode last week, but this week it's amazing. And I think, do you find that that affects people who are more on the empathetic side when they really feel people's energy more than people who don't?
So I probably have a very, I don't know what you would say, but I think sometimes when you identify as an empath or a sensitive person, which I could label myself as that, I can read people. I read their energies all the time. Someone walks into a room, I don't have to communicate with them. I I think that's a gift, but when you have to watch the stories and the beliefs that you tell yourself, because it's like, I'm an empath, therefore I feel everybody's energy.
Mm,
But it doesn't have to be that way. You just don't have the tools to know how to protect your energy. Like you have, and you don't practice them. It's one thing to know the tools, it's another thing to actually live and practice that energy. I've seen a lot of people like, I can't do that. And I'm like, it doesn't matter who you are, you can do that. You're choosing not to do that because you're giving yourself an out.
yeah.
And so I think we all feel energy, whether we call ourselves an empath or introverted, extroverted. but some are more willing to admit that they can feel energy than the other person. But we're all intuitively connected.
Yeah.
But do I believe in some people are more open and vulnerable than others? 100%. But then I also feel like a lot of people are wildly disconnected from themselves and therefore they can't feel anything or they don't understand what they are experiencing.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day. They're like, "You don't believe in all this stuff, do you?" Basically. And I was
Yeah.
like, "I do, in fact." Right? And it was just no awareness of what that is or how you could even judge somebody's energy by walking into the room. Like you need self-awareness, and it's like a muscle too, right? You need to learn how to feel that, and it's not something that some people, maybe you're born with it, but you still have to hone that as a skill.
And most likely that person that was judging is probably an empath who is avoiding feeling that. Because think about how many things there are in the world that are not even in your consciousness right now.
Mhm.
Like people be like, I hate this person. And I'm like, I don't even think about that person. Like some celebrity that drives them crazy. And I'm like, why are you so attracted to looking up that person and figuring out what they're doing? They're not even in my field of like awareness.
Yeah.
There's something about that person that is connected to you. And so when we're judging somebody or something, or like, oh, I wish I had that freedom, and then we're judging, it's like there's a desire inside of you. And I guarantee you that person is mirroring back to you something that you are not willing to look at.
Mm, interesting. Yeah, I've definitely experienced that where like somebody says, something I'm doing, and they're like, must be nice, and then you're like, oh, it really, it's amazing how easily that can
Yeah.
shift you out of that joyful state into like almost like a defense
Mhm.
position. Yeah.
This brings me into the conversation around like, I always say like children's behavior is a language. So my background's in social work, and when I was there, again, there's so much judgment, right? Judgment of children, judgment of behaviors, and we call them defiant. We label them with something, and I'm like, this is a person. This is actually a soul having a human experience, and they're just trying to figure it out just like adults are, and we're putting all this pressure on them and they can't figure anything else out. So when people say things like, oh, must be nice, I know that there's a jealousy there because they're not choosing themselves. They're choosing responsibility, they're choosing safety, they're choosing like all of these things that they think they should do. Like, I don't have those equal opportunities, their belief systems. And I'm like, is any of this true? Or are you just choosing to play the victim in your life because you don't want to actually do the emotionally uncomfortable work to become the person that you desire to be? So it's the same with children. You're like, listen, is your teenager driving you nuts, or are they having a really hard time? Like, are they in a transition period in their life? Is your toddler driving you crazy, or do they have like freaking constipation? Like, pay attention to people. We're so quick to judge like what is really going on, and getting more intuitive in our own body so that we stop judging other people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the challenge with this living life on your own terms is a lot of people probably don't even know where to start. They don't even know what their terms are.
Yeah.
We're so ingrained. And I remember doing some exercise around like, what do I really desire? And is this something I think I should desire? Or do I really deep down desire it? Because we've been put in these boxes and expected that this is how a mother should be. And this is how this should, like all of these things, these roles, and you kind of go, how do I even know how to figure out how to live life and work and parent on my terms?
So every time someone asks me this question, my go to is like, what is not working for you? So everything is a skill. It's a practice. So you have to practice it, which means your perfectionism is going to come up. You're going to have to learn boundaries, like all the things you've been avoiding, you are now going to have to do, like time management, like how do you want to feel? You need to become the detective of your life. But I always tell people, first of all, we're so addicted to this all or nothing thinking. Like, okay, I hate my job. My marriage is falling apart. I have no money. I'm just going to blow shit up and start fresh.
Yeah.
Or you could say, what is not working? And pick one area of your life. And you know what? Just maybe start drinking a glass of water in the morning and going for a small walk. Maybe. Crazy concept. Maybe
Hydrating
start
and exercise.
100%. Like, maybe just pen to paper. Oh, I hate that. I don't like pen to paper. I hate journaling. Don't make me do that. Okay, then don't. But understand that the reason why you're not doing it is part of the block and the issue. And so we're so addicted to all or nothing, like, let's blow the shit up. And if it doesn't work, then I have failed, versus like, how can I be 1 degree better every day? So I always tell people, write down, these are my go-to journal prompts. 1, what don't you want? What is not working? Write that, like, not this list. Write it down. Not this, not this, not this. We all know what we don't want. Okay, now write the opposite of that. I don't want to feel like crap in my body. What's the opposite of that? I want to feel strong and alive. Awesome. I don't want to yell at my kids anymore. Awesome. What's the opposite of that? I want to have a great connection. You know what it is. That's how you get started. And then you take one of those and you start asking yourself, how can I start to create some of that energy into my life? How can I identify why I'm yelling? How can I identify why there's a disconnect here? How can I identify why I don't feel amazing in my body? And put those little habits on your calendar. And if you don't know what that is, then you go over to my podcast and figure it out and read the book and start investing time and energy into how you want to feel. But I believe people know what they want. They just won't give themselves permission. And I've had people over and over again be like, I don't know. And I said, is it that you don't know, or you're actually terrified to admit what you want?
Probably terrified to admit.
Yeah.
Would you say that's more often the case?
Yeah, you got to be honest with yourself. But I've said to people, many times, sometimes even clients that I work with, I'm like, there's something off here. Like, I can feel it and I can see it. This is not in alignment and it's not working. There's something that you're not saying. And then they say it and they cry. And then I'm like, okay, now what? And they're like, I feel lighter. Like, you've been holding on to something, trying to fit yourself in somebody else's box, when, even if you lie, even if you try to hide it, it's going to come out sideways eventually. That's what I tell people. I'm like, it's not about like making your vision board and doing all of that. Like, your life is here to show you what is not working. Yelling is a symptom. Like, your physical body puts you in pain because that's symptoms. It was created to be like, knock, knock, knock. This is not working. Please pay attention to me.
Yeah.
But yet we live in a culture that's like, knock, knock, knock. Medicate it, numb it. I don't have time for this shit. I got work to do. And then we wonder why we're broke, miserable, angry, resentful.
Oh my gosh. Yep. I feel like we could talk about this all day. I think we're going to have to do a part 2 because I had other questions, but we're coming to the top of the hour and we both have things to get to as well. And people are, places to be and people to talk to and all those things. So how can people learn more about working with you? I know you have a retreat coming up because I'm speaking at it. So do you want to share a little bit about the retreat or anything else that you've got going on right now?
Yeah, well, our retreat registration is closed, but we always have, I say, go to the podcast. That's where I hang out a lot. It's called Emotionally Uncomfortable. The book, Dying to be a Good Mother. And we're actually going to be having a lot of my process ETM, energetic time management. We're doing a lot of those workshops. So you can find me at like Heather Chauvin, my name, CHAUVIN.com/ETM, and get on that wait list when we open the doors for that.
Awesome. And what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll pop the links into the comments and that in the different platforms. So if anybody wants to grab those, we'll add those to the comments. Thanks again for joining me, Heather. It's always such an amazing conversation.
Thank you, Laura.
Awesome. And next week, I'm going to be joined by Finca Jerkovic. We're going to be talking about selling from love. She's the author of Sell from Love, same podcast under the same name. So we're going to be talking about how to change how you sell. So that'll be another awesome conversation. So until then, we will see you next week. And thanks again, Heather.
Bye. Thanks, Laura.